It was Howard University, 1996, and Coates attended Howard University between 1993 and 1999. And our dear friends Charles Jacobs, who is over the American Anti-Slavery Group, held a forum at Howard University in 1996. Let me show you the video, and then we'll go from there.
Are there any other questions? Please.
That's Ta-Nehisi Coates. Circa, he's 20-something years old, 1996, Howard University.
Okay. All of the panelists mentioned, or I heard a few of the panelists actually mentioned that they would like African Americans to play a role in the fight against slavery in the Sudan. But recently, in his trip abroad, Louis Farrakhan, who was emerged as an African American leader, it is my understanding, made the comment that slavery did not exist or that it was at a minimal level in the Sudan. Now, the majority or the masses of African Americans don't really have a knowledge of slavery in Mauritania and the Sudan. I know I'm a college student, and it was definitely a surprise to me. So what would be the effect, or how could we combat such a comment by such a leader with, such a high standing among African American people?
Panelists consisted of African nationals from Sudan, from Mauritania, both Christian and Muslim, who were testifying about the slavery and the genocide that was happening in Mauritania and in the Sudan. Now, context, 1996 is the year after the Million Man March led by Louis Farrakhan, the Nation of Islam, 1995, right, in Washington, D.C. As the leader of the Nation of Islam, it could be stated that arguably his street cred and his name was probably never as well known, Louis Farrakhan, as it was leading up to and post the Million Man March, right? Nearly 30 years ago. Louis Farrakhan is holding great sway in the Black American community. Not that he does it now, but probably even more so back then. So a young Ta-Nehisi Coates gets up to the microphone after hearing the testimonies of these African men about what's actually going on. And Coates is aware that Farrakhan has been saying the opposite. Like you heard, there's no slavery in Sudan, or if there is, it's minimal levels. No, these guys got to talk about the millions of slaves and those who are being displaced. Again, this was nearly 30 years ago. Of course, that Ta-Nehisi Coates goes on to become the vaunted author and the world-renowned pop culture figure that I talked to you about before. And to our knowledge, and we did some research, we don't have any record of Ta-Nehisi Coates ever addressing, either in literary form, by speeches, whatever that's publicly available, ever addressing what he already knew to be true nearly 30 years ago now, is that slavery in Africa at the hands of Arab Islamic slave traders is real. He's known this since college. Islam spread through conquest and destruction, slavery, first and foremost, from the deserts of Arabia going west across Africa. The transatlantic slave trade ended in the 19th century. The trans-Saharan slave trade has not ended. Hence the slaves of Sudan, the slaves in Mauritania, the slaves in Qatar, the slaves in Saudi Arabia, the slaves in Libya, the slaves in Algeria. That region has been enslaving Africans for 1,400 years and counting. Coates learns about it in college. And according to what we've seen, has said nothing but has written about Palestine. Farrakhan's was a lie of commission. He knew he wasn't telling the truth. Coates was a lie of omission, because unless Ta-Nehisi Coates, who found out about the enslavement of Africans by Arab Islamists all over Africa back when he was a college student in Howard, unless he has addressed it, he lies by omission. Because not only are you not going to speak to that, and you're concerned about oppression, and you're concerned about exploitation and imperialism and all those things, nothing about what's going on in Africa, and then you have the audacity and the unmitigated gall to call Israel an apartheid state. Israel's not an apartheid state. Hold on, bruh. No, it's not an apartheid state. What about Mauritania? You learned about that in 1996. The silence around the Arab Islamic enslavement, genocide, and displacement up to the millions of Africans, and by now for millennia, shows the moral cowardice and the enslavement of the mind to the progressive agenda that sees that somehow, if you talk about what's going on with Arab Islam and the enslavement of Africa, it's somehow Islamophobic. It's stupid, but it's also demonic. Because while we're wringing our hands about the right term to use, these people are still being slaughtered and enslaved by the millions. And folks who stand up, who act like they have consciousness, who think that they're, especially if they consider themselves even remotely Afrocentric, say nothing. Why? Because the white liberal establishment doesn't want you to say anything. For all of your wokeness, for all of your independence of thought, you bow down to the altar of white progressivism because you refuse to tell the truth about what's going on, even if an African tells you himself.
Truth to Power Live with Jimmy Study Washington.